Old Hollywood did not just create movie stars. It created public masks polished enough to fool generations. What if the perfect gentleman, the rugged cowboy, the silent screen idol, and the nervous Hitchcock legend were all carrying stories the studios could not safely print? Tonight, we revisit the glamour with care, not gossip, because behind those famous smiles were men navigating pressure, rumor, fear, and survival long before America knew how to speak honestly about identity on screen at all. Cary Grant. Cary Grant should open the list because his public image remains one of Hollywood's most powerful illusions. From The Awful Truth and Bringing Up Baby to his Girl Friday, Notorious, and North by Northwest, Grant became the screen's perfect gentleman. Witty, elegant, athletic, and controlled. He looked like certainty itself. That is why the long conversation around his private life has never completely faded. For years, Grant lived on and off with fellow actor Randolph Scott in the Santa Monica home, later nicknamed Bachelor Hall. Fan magazines photographed and packaged the arrangement as handsome bachelor charm, but later writers kept returning to the same question. Was this only publicity, close friendship, or something deeper that the era could not safely name? Careful wording matters. Grant never publicly confirmed he was gay, and it would be wrong to turn speculation into certainty. He married several times, built an enormous career, and protected his inner life with unusual discipline. Still, the very persistence of the question tells us something about old Hollywood. The industry could sell romance while managing any hint that complicated the fantasy. Grant passed away in 1986, preserved in public memory as the smoothest leading man of his generation. Looking back now, his mystery feels less like gossip than a lesson in image control. Hollywood did not simply photograph Cary Grant. It engineered him, polished him, and left later viewers wondering what the perfect gentleman had been required to keep off screen, away from the same audience that believed it knew him completely for decades. And maybe still wants to know today, right now. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins belongs near the beginning because his story connects classic glamour to a more modern fear. He became famous in the 1950s, earned an Academy Award nomination for Friendly Persuasion, and then became immortal as Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. That role made him unforgettable, but it also trapped him inside an image of nervous intensity that followed him for decades. His private life was more complicated than the public version allowed. Later memoirs, biographies, and interviews described relationships with men, including tab hunter and dancer Grover Dale, while Perkins later married Barry Berenson and became a father. Some writers describe him as gay, others as bisexual. The most respectful approach is to avoid forcing a label he did not fully provide in public. What matters is the pattern: privacy, compartmentalization, and fear that survived long after the strictest studio years. Perkins worked in a changing Hollywood, but mainstream stardom still punished honesty. Even his AIDS diagnosis remained private for much of his illness. He passed away in Los Angeles in 1992 at 60 from AIDS-related pneumonia. The public remembered Psycho first: the house, the motel, the stare. Later, viewers had to reckon with the man behind the typecasting, someone whose life had been shaped by talent, anxiety, love, and careful silence. Perkins shows that old Hollywood's rules did not disappear overnight. They echoed forward, teaching even later generations of actors that survival sometimes meant dividing the heart into separate rooms, while the cameras kept asking for one simple, sellable face from him almost until the very end of his life for viewers. Montgmery Clift. Montgmery Clift comes next because he changed what male stardom could look like. Before him, screen masculinity often had to appear firm, confident, and untouchable. Clift made it wounded, inward, sensitive, and electric. In Red River, A Place in the Sun, From Here to Eternity, and Judgment at Nuremberg, he made silence feel louder than speeches. Off-screen, his private life remained carefully unresolved in public. Later, biographers and friends described relationships with men, emotional complexity, and a sexuality that modern writers have labeled in different ways. Some call him gay, others bisexual. Clift himself did not leave a clear public label, so the careful version is the honest version. His private world was real, but the public record is incomplete. The pressure around him was not abstract. He rose in a period when gossip columns could damage a career, and male stars were expected to fit a profitable model of American manhood. After a serious 1956 car accident, his face changed, his pain deepened, and the press began watching his decline almost as closely as his performances. Clift passed away in New York in 1966 at 45. Obituaries remembered the talent and the sadness. Later books and documentaries kept searching for the private man beneath the legend. His story should not be reduced to rumor or tragedy. It is the story of an actor who gave audiences emotional truth while never being granted a public language gentle enough for his own. That imbalance may be why his best work still feels so immediate, like a confession spoken through someone else's script. Even today, now. Ramon Novarro. Ramon Novarro belongs high because his story shows how dangerous early fame could become. In the silent era, he rose from bit parts to major stardom, especially through Scaramouche and MGM's Ben-Hur. After Rudolph Valentino passed away, studios promoted Novarro as a Latin leading man, handsome enough to sell romance across America and refined enough to carry epic spectacle. But the image required protection. Novarro's private life unfolded in a Hollywood far less forgiving than the one later stars faced. Biographers have written about his relationships with men, his Catholic guilt, and the difficult bargain demanded by early studio fame. He never publicly came out, and modern labels should be used with care, but the larger pattern is clear. His stardom depended on concealment. The pressure was doubled by prejudice. He was a Mexican-born star in an industry that exoticized him, profited from him, and still limited what he could safely reveal. As talkies changed the business and his leading man years faded, the protective machinery around him weakened too. Novarro lost his life in Los Angeles in 1968 after a violent attack during a robbery. For decades, that ending often overshadowed the artistry that came before it. A respectful retelling should do both. Remember Ben-Hur and the glamour, but also name the world that made privacy feel necessary. Novarro's story is not simply about hidden identity. It is about how fame can protect a person until it suddenly does not. That is why his silence feels less like mystery than evidence of an era that asked too much from vulnerable stars and gave little back. Van Johnson. Van Johnson shows the machinery more clearly than almost anyone on this list. At MGM in the 1940s, he became the clean-cut, red-haired, all-American favorite in A Guy Named Joe, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, The Caine Mutiny, and Brigadoon. He looked cheerful, decent, and safe, exactly the kind of star wartime and post-war audiences wanted to believe in. But safety was not only personality, it was product design. Later biographers and Hollywood historians repeatedly discussed Johnson as a man whose public image was carefully managed by MGM. His marriage to Eve Abbott became central to that discussion. After her own passing, Abbott was quoted as saying MGM had helped engineer the marriage to quiet rumors about Johnson's sexuality. Because Johnson did not publicly provide a clear identity label, the script should stay measured. The point is not to claim more than the record supports. The point is to show how a studio could build heterosexual reassurance around a star and make that reassurance commercially valuable. Gossip columnists had power. Morals clauses had power. Publicity departments had power. The actor inside the machinery had less. Johnson passed away in 2008, one of the last links to that old MGM world. Many remembered the warmth, smile, freckles, and songs. Later viewers also see the supervision around him. His story is not just about a hidden private life. It is about the factory that could turn a person into an approved national fantasy, then ask him to live inside it. For a gentle star, that bargain may have been the hardest performance of all, every day in Hollywood. Cesar Romero. Cesar Romero survived through elegance, and that may be why his chapter feels so slippery. He was stylish, funny, handsome, and visible for decades. In 1930s and 1940s films, in musicals and adventure stories, and later as the Joker on Batman. To younger viewers, he was painted mischief. To old Hollywood, he was a charming bachelor who knew exactly how to keep moving. Romero never married and had no children, which fueled long-running speculation. Later writers and queer Hollywood historians often treated him as part of the discreet gay social world of the period. Some accounts say he discussed his sexuality in interviews meant to be published only after his lifetime, though parts of that interview tradition remain debated. That is why the script should not oversell certainty where the record is complicated. What is clear is the strategy. Romero did not force a public rupture. He stayed social, polished, and deniable. Old Hollywood could tolerate ambiguity when it was wrapped in manners, tuxedos, and charm. The lifelong bachelor image became both a shield and a brand. Romero passed away in 1994 at 86 after complications connected to illness. Public memory celebrated the entertainer, the mustache, the laugh, the bright villainy, the durability. Later memory asked a quieter question. How many men survived not by confessing, but by making sure the official record stayed soft around the edges? Romero's blur may not be a failure of history. It may have been the very plan. In that blur, we can still see a performer turning discretion into one more graceful, lifelong role before America was ready. Clifton Webb. Clifton Webb belongs here because he shows what Hollywood could notice without saying aloud. In Laura, The Razor's Edge, and Sitting Pretty, he turned wit, refinement, and cutting precision into a star image. He was not marketed as a cowboy or a boy next door. He was sold as intelligence, taste, and elegant superiority. That made his case different from a hidden rugged star. Webb's manner was visible. His sophistication was the product. Scholars have written about him as a queer star in mid-century Hollywood, and later memoirs and commentary spoke more directly than the publicity of his lifetime. Yet Webb himself did not make a modern public declaration, so the script should keep historical care. The key is the split between persona and permission. Hollywood could market a certain kind of polished difference if it remained witty, stylish, and contained inside performance. It could allow audiences to sense something, laugh at something, admire something, and still avoid naming it. That was not freedom. It was a narrow stage. Webb passed away in 1966 at 76. Obituaries remembered the actor, the elegance, the acid timing, and Mr. Belvedere. Later viewers looked back and saw more. A man whose public image depended on being distinctive, while the private truth behind that distinction stayed veiled. His story is less about a shocking reveal than an old cultural habit. Hollywood let him be visible, even unforgettable. It did not give him permission to be plain. That difference explains why his performances still feel sharp. They glitter because they are both display and defense at once. On screen today, still. Old Hollywood asked these men to perform roles on screen and sometimes another life off screen. Which story feels most painful to you? The whispered ones, the carefully managed ones, or the truths history understood too late? Comment your answer. Share this with someone who remembers these stars, and subscribe for more respectful, untold Hollywood stories. told with care, context, and dignity for the people behind the legend forever. Today,